The blood on her dress wasn't hers. Samuel Mackenzie stood in his doorway, lantern flame dancing against the howling wind, staring down at the small figure collapsed on his porch. Rain hammered the wooden planks like bullets, and lightning split the Wyoming sky in jagged white scars. The girl couldn't be more than 14, her dark hair plastered to her skull, her thin shoulders shaking with more than just cold. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the storm, "don't send me back." Samuel had lived alone on this ranch for 7 years, ever since Martha passed. 7 years of silence broken only by cattle lowing and wind through the pines. He'd grown comfortable with solitude, trusted it more than he trusted people, but something in the girl's eyes, wide and desperate as a cornered animal, made him step aside. "Get in here before you catch your death." She stumbled past him, leaving muddy prints on Martha's clean floors. In the lamplight, Samuel could see the bruises along her jaw, purple-black fingerprints on her pale throat. The blood on her dress was dried now, rust-colored stains that told stories he wasn't sure he wanted to hear. "What's your name, child?" "Elena." She wrapped her arms around herself, teeth chattering. "Elena Reyes." Samuel fetched a blanket from the chest, the same wool blanket Martha used to wrap around her shoulders during winter evenings. When he draped it over Elena's frame, she flinched like she expected a blow instead of kindness. "Who did this to you?" Elena's eyes darted to the window, where lightning illuminated the empty prairie. "My stepfather. He killed my mother 3 days ago. Said I saw too much." Her voice cracked. "Said he'd finish what he started if I ever told anyone." Samuel felt something cold settle in his chest. In the distance, barely audible through the storm, came the sound of hoofbeats, multiple riders, moving fast despite the weather. Elena heard them too, her face drained of what little color remained. "They found me," she breathed. The hoofbeats grew louder, accompanied now by voices shouting through the rain. Samuel moved to the window and peered through the glass. 5 riders approached his ranch, their faces hidden beneath hat brims, but their intent clear in the way they spread out to surround his property. Elena grabbed his arm, her fingers digging into his sleeve like claws. "Please don't let them take me back." Samuel recognized the lead rider before the man dismounted, Sheriff Clayton Burke, a man whose badge carried more tarnish than shine. Burke had owned half the businesses in Millfield for the past decade, including the saloon where desperate men made deals they'd regret come morning. Behind him rode 4 deputies, though Samuel knew at least 2 were nothing more than hired guns. "Evening, Mackenzie," Burke called out, his voice cutting through the rain. "Heard you might have found something that belongs to us." Samuel stepped onto his porch, keeping Elena behind him inside the doorway. The girl's breathing came in short, panicked gasps that reminded him of wounded deer he'd found in his pastures, all wide eyes and trembling limbs, knowing death was close. "Don't know what you mean, Sheriff." Burke's smile held no warmth. "Young Elena Reyes. Her stepfather's been worried sick. Says she ran off after her poor mother had an accident." The way he said accident made Samuel's jaw clench. Girl's probably confused, traumatized, needs to be with family. And if she doesn't want to go? She's 14, Mackenzie. Minors don't get to choose. Burke dismounted, his boots squelching in the mud. "Now be reasonable. Hand her over, and we'll pretend this conversation never happened." Samuel had fought in 3 range wars and countless smaller conflicts. Bial, outstanding, here with a terrified child behind him, he felt the weight of a different kind of battle. This wasn't about cattle or water rights. This was about whether evil could wear a badge and call itself justice. Elena's hand touched his back, light as a butterfly landing. "He's not my stepfather anymore," she whispered, just loud enough for Burke to hear. "Not since he put his hands around my mother's throat." The sheriff's expression darkened. Girl's clearly disturbed, making wild accusations. He stepped closer, rain dripping from his hat brim. "Last chance, Mackenzie. We can do this easy, or we can do it hard." Samuel looked at Burke's men, professional killers pretending to be lawmen. He thought of Martha, who used to feed stray cats despite his protests, who never turned away anyone hungry. He thought of the 14-year-old girl shivering behind his door, carrying wounds that would never fully heal. "Then I guess we do it hard." Burke's hand drifted to his gun. "You're making a mistake, old man. Big mistake." "Maybe, but it's mine to make." The sheriff's eyes went cold as winter stone. "You got till sunrise to reconsider," Burke said, swinging back onto his horse. "After that, we come back with a warrant and whatever force we deem necessary." He wheeled his mount around, but stopped at the edge of Samuel's property. "And Mackenzie, don't think about running. We got men watching every road out of town." The 5 riders melted back into the storm, but Samuel knew they wouldn't go far. He'd seen this game before, the slow tightening of a noose, the illusion of choice before the inevitable. Burke would position his men around the ranch, wait for dawn, then come with legal papers that gave him permission to do whatever he wanted. Inside, Elena sat hunched by the fireplace, the blanket pulled tight around her shoulders. The flames cast dancing shadows on her face, making her look even younger than her 14 years. "You should have let them take me," she said quietly. "Now they'll hurt you too." Samuel poured coffee from the pot Martha used to keep warm for him during long nights. His hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from rage at a world that let men like Burke wear badges, while children like Elena fled through storms. "Tell me what really happened." Elena stared into the fire. "Mama married James Carver last spring. He seemed nice at first, brought flowers, fixed things around our cabin." Her voice grew smaller. "But after the wedding, he changed, started drinking more, started hitting." Samuel had known men like Carver, charmers who showed one face to the world and another behind closed doors. 3 nights ago, he came home drunk. Mama had hidden his whiskey bottle, and Elena's breath hitched. He grabbed her by the throat, said she was worthless, said we both were. I tried to stop him, but he was so strong. "Where were you when it happened?" "Behind the curtain that separated our sleeping areas. I watched him squeeze until she stopped moving. Then he saw me watching." Elena touched the bruises on her throat. "Said I could join her, or I could keep my mouth shut and be his good little daughter." The coffee cup cracked in Samuel's grip. Outside, thunder rolled across the prairie like artillery fire. "So, you ran?" "I waited until he passed out, then took Mama's horse and rode toward town. But his friends were waiting. They chased me through the night until I reached your place." Elena looked up at him with eyes too old for her face. "He owns the sheriff, doesn't he?" Samuel nodded grimly. Through the window, he could see movement in the tree line, Burke's men taking positions. Come dawn, this would end one of 2 ways. Elena would leave with them, or she'd leave over Samuel's body. But there was a third option, one that had been growing in his mind since Burke rode away. "Elena, can you ride?" She nodded. "Good, because come first light, we're going to give them exactly what they want." At dawn, Samuel stood on his porch holding Elena's hand, both of them clearly visible to Burke's men positioned around the ranch. The storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean and gleaming under pale morning light. Birds sang in the cottonwoods, ignorant of the human drama unfolding below their branches. Burke rode up with his 4 men, confident now in daylight. He held a rolled paper in his left hand, the warrant he had promised, but his right hand rested on his gun butt. "Smart choice, Mackenzie. Hand her over, and this ends peaceful." Samuel squeezed Elena's hand once, gently. She squeezed back, understanding passing between them without words. Then he stepped forward, placing himself between the girl and the mounted men. "Before we do this, Sheriff, I got something to say." Burke's expression grew impatient. "Make it quick. This child says James Carver murdered her mother, says she witnessed it." Samuel's voice carried across the yard, clear and strong. "Now, I don't know much about law, but seems to me a witness to murder deserves protection, not delivery to the killer. Girl's lying, making up stories. Maybe, but what if she's not?" Samuel looked at each of Burke's men in turn. "What if we're all standing here helping a man cover up the murder of an innocent woman?" He saw doubt flicker across 2 of the deputies' faces. Real lawmen who'd joined Burke before learning what kind of man wore the badge. "Enough talk," Burke snapped. "Hand her over or what?" Samuel interrupted. "You'll shoot an unarmed rancher in broad daylight? Kill a man protecting a child?" He raised his voice, knowing it would carry to Burke's positioned men. "That what you all signed up for when you pinned on those badges?" Elena stepped out from behind Samuel, her chin raised despite the fear in her eyes. "I'm not lying," she called out, her young voice breaking but determined. Ames Carver strangled my mother with his bare hands while I watched. Then he tried to kill me to keep me quiet." Burke's face flushed red. "Shut your mouth, girl." "The truth got you nervous, Sheriff?" Samuel asked. One of the younger deputies shifted in his saddle, looking uncomfortable. Another loosened his grip on his reins, doubt creeping into his posture. Burke saw his authority slipping and reached for his gun, But Samuel was already moving, his own weapon clearing leather with the smooth precision of a man who'd survived 3 range wars. Elena pressed herself against the porch wall as the 2 men faced each other across 20 feet of muddy ground. "This how you want it to end, Burke?" The standoff lasted 3 heartbeats before Deputy Mills, the youngest of Burke's men, spoke up. "Sheriff, maybe we should hear what the girl has to say. Proper-like, in front of witnesses." Burke's eyes never left Samuel's gun. "You questioning my judgment, Mills? I'm questioning whether we're on the right side of this." 2 more deputies shifted positions, moving their horses away from Burke. Only one man remained loyal, Jake Morrison, a killer who would follow orders regardless of right or wrong. "You're all making a mistake," Burke snarled, but Samuel could hear the uncertainty creeping into his voice. "The only mistake," Samuel said quietly, "would be letting you take this child back to the man who wants her dead." Elena stepped forward, her young voice steady now. "I can prove it. James has a scar on his left hand from where Mama scratched him. Fresh scratches, right across his knuckles. And he buried her wedding ring in the root cellar behind our cabin, thinking nobody would look there." Burke's face went pale. He knew the details were too specific, too immediate to be lies. Deputy Mills dismounted, removing his badge as he did. "I signed up to protect people, not deliver children to murderers." He looked at Burke with disgust. "Count me out, Sheriff." Another deputy followed suit, then the third. Only Morrison remained mounted, his hand on his gun, waiting for orders that might never come. Samuel kept his weapon trained on Burke but spoke to Elena. "Get inside, child. This isn't over yet." But Elena didn't move. Instead, she walked down the porch steps and stood beside Samuel, small and defiant in the morning light. "I'm not hiding anymore," she said simply. Burke looked around at his remaining support, one hired gun and a badge that suddenly carried no weight at all. The other deputies had formed a loose circle around him, no longer his allies, but not quite his enemies either. "This isn't finished, Mackenzie." "Yes," Samuel said, his gun never wavering. "It is." Burke holstered his weapon with shaking hands, then spurred his horse toward town. Morrison followed, but not before giving Samuel a look that promised future violence. As the dust settled, Deputy Mills approached the porch. "We'll need her testimony," he said gently to Elena. "Think you're strong enough to tell your story one more time?" Elena looked up at Samuel, then back at the deputy. "Yes, sir, I am." Samuel holstered his gun and put his arm around Elena's shoulders. In the distance, the mountains stood eternal and patient, witnesses to countless human struggles played out in their shadow. The girl leaned against him, no longer the terrified child who'd collapsed on his porch in the storm. "Thank you," she whispered. Samuel looked out over his land, at the home Martha had helped him build, at the future that suddenly held more than just solitude and memory. Elena would need time to heal, need someone to stand between her and the darkness that had shaped her young life. He could do that. Martha would have wanted him to do that. "Come on, child," he said softly. "Let's go home." The sun climbed higher, burning away the last shadows of the storm, and somewhere in the distance a meadowlark sang of new beginnings.